So what if I told you guys this? What if I told you guys that the whole time you and I were hoping that God would meet us over here, the reality is God's actually way back here waiting for you and I? What if I told you that? What if I told you that the whole time you and I were all the way up here hoping and praying and wishing, hi buddy, that God would meet us here? The reality that most of us don't see is that God is actually, it's a good thing I've been doing cardio, by the way. This is harder than look. God's actually waiting for us over here. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because it's a little bit too early in my sermon to really put anybody on blast. But I wonder how many of us got up this morning, this week, this month, this year, wishing, hoping, dreaming that God would meet us up there, not knowing that the whole time God is actually back there waiting on you and I. Luke chapter 17 is our anchor passage. If you have a Bible, I've preached this many times, one of my favorite stories in the entire Bible. If you have a physical Bible like I do, you're going to notice immediately that there's a lot of red before verse 11 where we're going to start. Right, and the reason there's a lot of red is because that's the translator's way of letting you know that Jesus just preached a whole lot of sermons before what's about to happen. Okay, and I can't speak to any other preacher or pastor out there, but I know that every Sunday after I just preach a whole bunch of sermons, there's only one thing I want to do. Anybody want to guess? Eat is good. Crash. That's it. Right? Ask my wife. She'll tell you I do the same thing every Sunday. Okay, I preach. Takes everything out of me. I go to ClickList or pick up the groceries. I go home, pretend like I'm helping the kids for lunch because I'm a zombie. And then rest time, I go in the basement. I turn the lights off. I throw my phone away. And I just crash hard. Every single Sunday, I'm in my basement crashing. And I don't come out until Wednesday. Okay, seriously. My kids don't see me for 3 days. Like, Daddy preached on Sunday, is in his cave. Here's the point, even though this is not really the point of today's narrative, I think this is just a great opportunity to remember that Jesus is the kind of guy that is not bothered by our interruption after he just preached a whole bunch of messages about the kingdom of God. Right? Jesus is the kind of guy that has margin to be interrupted by people that the world has no margin for. And that's what we're about to see in the story. Jesus just preached a whole bunch of amazing sermons about the kingdom of God and the story of God. And then the writer tells us in verse 11, he says, now on his way to Jerusalem, it says that Jesus, listen to this, traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. Quick historical context, if you're not familiar, historians tell us, ancient writers tell us that generally speaking, the people who lived in Galilee and the people who lived in Samaria, the Galileans and the Samaritans, were at odds with each other. Okay, historically speaking, we know that the people on this side of the border, which is the Galileans, congratulations, that's you guys for the sake of this message, wanted nothing to do with the Samaritans. Okay, they were at odds with each other politically, socially, culturally, right? I mean, religiously, they were at odds with each other. They didn't want anything to do with each other. In fact, there are some stories in the Bible, I think it's in John chapter 4, tells us that people in Jesus' day, they would actually travel the longer route. Jews would, so they didn't have to interact with a Samaritan. And the writer jumps in the story and it says, Jesus is on his way, and Jesus is traveling the border between Galilee and Samaria. Is it just me or does anybody else love that visual? Right? I love it. Right? It's not really the sermon, but I love the visual of Jesus traveling the border of two groups of people that wanted nothing to do with each other. I love Jesus traveling in the middle because I think it's a reminder that no matter how much we try, there is no group that can ever monopolize Jesus. I'm going to say that again because that'll preach in this culture, because there's a whole lot of groups right now trying to have monopoly on Jesus. And I think this passage right here is just a subtle reminder that nobody gets to monopolize Jesus. I don't know about anybody else, but I love that about Jesus. I love that no group can keep an exclusive claim on Jesus. I love that the same Jesus that could be found in the temple in Jerusalem could also be found around the table in Samaria. I love that Jesus hung out with the priests and he hung out with the prostitutes. I love that Jesus took time to talk to a religious leader who has spent all of his life trying to please God, but he also took time to talk to the criminal at the cross who had no time to do anything good for God. I love that we serve a Savior who travels the border. Right? I wasn't there, but I imagine the disciples were like, again, why we got to go? I mean, we're always trying to avoid, and it says Jesus traveled along the border, and as he traveled, listen to what the writer says. He says, as he was going into a village, some of you know this, but just try and pretend like you don't, because this story is amazing. It says, 10 men who had leprosy met him. So get this, Jesus is traveling the border. It's Galilee, there's Samaria. They don't want anything to do with each other. And as he's traveling, the writer says he met 10 men. Now notice that the writer doesn't say that he met 10 Galileans or 10 Samaritans. Right? He doesn't say that. Now, spoiler alert, we're going to find out later that at least one of the men was a Samaritan, which means this group was a diverse group, not only racially, but culturally and spiritually and politically and all that stuff. But the writer simply says at the beginning of the story, all he met were 10 men that had leprosy. Notice how the writer doesn't identify them by their ethnicity, but by their infirmity. Can I tell you guys something that a lot of us have to learn the hard way, but it doesn't have to be that way? There comes a time and a season in life where you are too desperate and too broken to focus on what divides you from people. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm telling you right now, I'll be the pastor to tell you that you are one phone call away for not caring what they voted for and who they like and what their preferences are. There comes a time in life where it doesn't matter. You are too desperate and you are too broken to focus on what's dividing you. Okay, and this is a different sermon for a different day, but there's a lot of division right now in our country, a lot of division in churches, a lot of division in our communities. And as I read this story, there's just a small part of me that can't help but wonder if a small part of the solution to our division is not that we all have to agree on everything, but we all have to realize that when it's all said and done, we are far too broken and we are all desperately in need of Jesus. Anybody ever been in that? You ever been in that place where you're sitting across from someone and you're like, I don't even care what group you're on, man. All I know is that we have a shared pain and we have a shared desperation. Right? The writer doesn't tell us how, what side they were on or how many of them. It just says that they all had leprosy. Right? It's what my friend Justin a couple weeks ago, if you missed the sermon, man, he was so good. I was in my office taking notes and saying it, man, and I'm texting him. He called it the outweighing. Anybody remember that sermon? Right? He's like, sometimes, every once in a while, something is going to happen and it's going to outweigh your personal preference. What we know about the story is that something happened, and for some crazy reason, these 10 men from two sides of the border came together. There was an outweighing, and we don't know how many came from each side. But what we do know, though, is that these men came together. And we know that obviously they had heard reports of Jesus and what Jesus could do, because when they got together, man, they knew that Jesus could help them. And listen to what the writer says. It says that when they met Jesus, it says in verse 12, it says they stood at a distance and they called out, are you ready for this? In a loud voice. They said, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Years ago, I was on a tour. I think we were in St. Louis, and I've shared stories like this before, but when you're on the road, it's the weirdest thing ever. You finish a show, you get on the tour bus, you drive all night, and you get there like 6 a.m., and it just parks in this arena, and you just look out the bus like, okay, we're in a new city now. It's a really bizarre thing, but I'll never forget this. We pulled in, and it was like 7 in the morning, and I opened the blinds to the bus, and I looked outside, and I saw a family camped outside between the bus. So between the bus and this family was a fence, and there was security there so people couldn't get through. And there was a family literally sitting out there like 7 in the morning. And as soon as I saw them, I knew why they were there, right? Because I've seen that before. I knew the reason that they were there is because they wanted to get the attention of their favorite artist, right? They wanted their favorite artist to sign an autograph, like sign my shirt, sign my CD, sign my baby, just sign something. Right? And so what people do is people come early because they know the bus comes early before everything starts, and they want to catch the artist before it comes off the bus. And I remember getting off the bus, and they're like, "Ah, they're screaming over here." I just turned away like, no, I'm not the guy you're looking for. And I kept walking. I'm like, oh, it probably looks like I'm snubbing them because they don't know that I'm not the guy they're looking for. Probably not a good idea because I'm going to be preaching later. And so I turn around and I go off. I was like, hi, guys. They're like, can you sign the thing? So we love your band. I'm like, yeah, sure. My band's great. I'll sign. Just kidding. I only did that one time. There's a little girl. She was convinced I was Michael Tate. She's like, please. Her mom's like, my daughter loves you. And I'm like, okay, sure. One time I did that. That's it. It's true. I did. I was like, I just couldn't say no to this little girl. She just wanted someone to sign her shirt. So, I explained to the family, hey, I'm not in the band. I'm just a random dude. But, they're like, okay. And sure enough, like literally every time the bus door would open, they would scream. Right? They're like, oh, because they're trying to get the attention of the person because there is a fence between them and their favorite artist and what they need. Right? The reason these men are screaming in this narrative is because there's a fence, if you will, between them and Jesus. Right? The reason they're screaming is because culturally speaking, back in Jesus' day, lepers were not only viewed as contagious, but they were viewed as cursed. Right? Back in Jesus' day, in the first century, if you had leprosy, you were ostracized from the community. You were removed from the general population. You had to live out in a colony in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't come close to people. The only way that you can get close to people is if you announced your arrival. You had to let people know if they were getting close to you. And so these men, bonded by their desperation, knew that Jesus could help them, but they knew they couldn't get close to Jesus. And so the writer tells us that they did what? They screamed, right? Because they had a fence between them. There's a cultural fence, there's a religious fence, there's a political fence, and all kind of stuff between them and Jesus. And they just screamed. They're like, Jesus, Master, please. They're like, will you please have mercy on us? Verse 14. And he says this. He says, when Jesus saw them. Pause, breathe, lean in. Don't miss this. When he saw them. Not when he heard them. And maybe it's just me, but that was fascinating to me that they screamed to Jesus, and the writer doesn't say, okay, then Jesus heard them and responded. No, it says that Jesus was like, no, move out of the way. When Jesus saw them. How significant is that? That Jesus is the kind of person that not only hears, but sees the people that nobody else wants to see. Because that was the reality in that culture. It's like when you're driving, does this happen to anybody else? When you're driving and you pull up at the stoplight and there's that person standing there with a sign? Anybody? It's really awkward for me when I'm in my Jeep with the doors up because they're right there. I got no doors and I'm just like, you know what I'm talking about? You're like trying not to make eye contact because they're right there. I can hear the guy breathing. I'm like, just look forward. Come on, green light. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You're trying, should I do something I don't, you're kind of going through the thing. And the worst is when your kids are in the car. Anybody know what I'm talking about? All right, Nora's like, Daddy, what does this sign say? I'm like, oh, Nora, this is a game of pretend you don't see the person, okay? She's like, Daddy, why is he standing there? Why does he have a sign? You guys know that tension, right? Where you're just like, yeah, should I do, okay, maybe I want to do something. I don't know what their story is. Please let the light just turn green so I don't have to think about it anymore. In Jesus' culture, take that times 100 if you had leprosy. Right? Not only did you have to announce that you were coming, but the moment people got a whiff that you were around, man, they're running that red light. They're like, let's go right now. There's no way. That person is cursed. That person is contagious. God knows what that person did. Everybody look forward. Roll up your windows. Let's just get out of here. And I just love the reminder that the writer is giving here that Jesus saw them. And I don't know who this is for, but man, aren't you glad that Jesus is the kind of person that sees people that no one else wants to see? Right? Jesus is the guy at the light that he's not only going to roll down his window, but he's going to put his car in park and get out of the car to go have a conversation, and we're all hunking in the back like, what's going on? It says that Jesus looked, and he saw them. And when Jesus saw them, listen to what Jesus says. It says, Jesus says to them, this is amazing. He says, I want you to go show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Why did Jesus tell them to go show themselves to the priests? Jesus told them that because that was the custom of the day. In the first century, the only way a leper could come back into the general population was to be cleared by the priests. That was the custom, which reminds me of customs. Anybody ever go through customs coming in? Right, I remember when I was a college pastor, we would go to Haiti, and I led multiple mission trips to Haiti, and we would come back, and I don't think the students realize this, and most of you probably don't realize this because you're American. I'm sure Tom can relate to this, but when you get to immigration, there's two lines, right? The line's like Americans, U.S. passport, and then everybody else. Anybody know that? Anybody notice that? Right? And it was also funny because I lead this mission trip, and I'll be like, see you guys later, you know? I go into everybody. I mean, there's the line. The American line was like Chick-fil-A. It was so efficient, you know? The other one was like Popeyes, you know? Except you didn't get fried chicken at the end, okay? Just a really long line and people that were not happy that you were there, okay? I feel like I have to apologize every time I go to Popeyes. I'm sorry. Can I have a sandwich, please? I'm begging you, please. You know, that's what it's like going through the non-American line immigration. You know, you got to go through and they scan you and look at your passport, Nigerian passport. Oh, man, I got an email from a Nigerian prince once. Are you that guy? Is he related to you? I'm like, no, I promise. I don't know any princes. It's just me. You know, where are you going and who are you leading and what's this trip and where's your visa? I mean, it's like my heart races every time because you just don't know. Are they going to let me in? Because if they don't, someone tell my wife bye, you know? And that's it. See, back in Jesus' day, believe it or not, that's what lepers had to do. Lepers had to go through this whole process where they went to the temple and went to the priests, and the priests had to clear them and check everything and scan them and all this stuff before they could be integrated back into the community. And so these guys show up and they say, Jesus, can you just help us? And Jesus says, okay, I want you to go show yourself to the priest and listen to this. I know you guys know the story, but don't miss this. It says, as they went, they were cleansed. The end. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Band can come on up now. Tip your storytellers on the way out. That's the end of the story, right? Is it just me or does anyone else think it's crazy that what feels like the end to the story is actually quite possibly the beginning of the story? It says, as they went, they were cleansed. And he says in verse 15, he says, one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back and praising God in a loud voice. That's 2 times now the writer uses loud. He wants us to know that what's happening is loud. The first time was a loud prayer. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. The second loud is a loud praise. And the writer says, again in verse 15, it says, one of them. I'm going to pick on you, Aaron, because you're in the front row. All right? You're like, yeah, sure. Not a trick question. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page, okay? How many men met Jesus when he was walking through? At the beginning of the story. How many men cried out to Jesus? 10. 10. Yeah, well, how many of them cried out? Okay, you don't sound very confident. It's not going great. I'm about to replace you with someone in the back to come. If you're going to sit in the front, have at least some answers. There were 10 at the very beginning of the story, right? Okay, awesome. This is like Family Feud, by the way. It doesn't matter what he says. Just say good answer and clap, okay? How many men? You're like, Candle. Good answer. Good answer. That's pretty good. I'm always at home like, no, bad answer. Can we just get bad answer one time? So 10 men at the beginning of the story cried out to Jesus, right? How many men did Jesus see? How many is that? 10. Okay, you keep looking at me like I'm going to trick you. I'm not trying to trick you. Good answer, someone said. Right? So Jesus, how many men did Jesus say, go show yourselves to the priests? 10. How many men were healed as they went to show themselves to the priests? All of them, 10. So 10 men cried out to Jesus. 10 men were seen by Jesus. Jesus told 10 men to go show themselves to the priests. And the writer says right there that all 10 of them were healed. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us what it took. It didn't tell us if it was like 2 minutes into their journey or 30 minutes or 1 hour. The writer just tells us that of the 10 that were healed as they went, only one person came back, and the question that I am hoping you're asking yourself right now is the question that Jesus asked the people who were around him. Listen to what Jesus says in verse 17. Jesus says this. He says, "We're not all 10 healed." I read this. I love the way the NLT put it. Jesus is like, "Didn't I heal 10? Aaron, can you help me out here?" Because, maybe Jesus like, I left my glasses at home, and I didn't get to, and there's a lot of crowds. People are following me everywhere. And they were far away screaming. It's kind of hard to see them, but I'm pretty sure. Was it, how many was it? I'm pretty sure it was 10. It was 10 people. And so just try and picture this for a second. Don't miss it. This is amazing. Jesus is looking around at the people who were hitting him, and he's saying, "Didn't I heal 10 people?" Now, this is just my imagination. Full disclosure, the Bible doesn't say this, so I could be wrong. But here's how this played out in my mind. I think this reads almost as if Jesus was waiting for all of them to come back. Don't miss the motion. Jesus is traveling. They scream. He says, "Go show yourselves." And they're going. And as they're going, we don't know how long it took, they got healed. And the whole time they're walking and getting healed, here's what I picture in my mind. I imagine Jesus is back here at the spot where they were screaming for him to help, and he's waiting. Right? Again, this is just my crazy imagination. But I just imagine after Jesus healed them, he's just standing there, and his disciples are like, why, Jesus? Why are we waiting here? We're traveling to Jerusalem. Remember, we're on the border. Can we get off this road as soon as possible? And Jesus like, hang on, man, just wait. It's going to be amazing. You're going to believe it. It's going to be amazing. Just watch. Now, what are we like? Just wait. Just watch. Okay, count down with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. And the disciples like, who? Like, Look, there's Bob, the first leper. Look at him coming. And Peter, maybe the disciples are like, wow, wasn't that one of the lepers he's healed? You healed him? And she's like, I didn't just heal him, man. I healed all 10 of them. Just you wait. Okay, Bob comes over and falls on his feet, and he's praising God. And Jesus is like, just wait, hang on. They're coming. It's like, don't worry. These guys haven't done cardio in a long time. It's going to take him some time to get here. Bob ran track in high school. That's why he outran everybody. But they're coming. Can you picture that image of Jesus just waiting? He's like, any moment now, hold. Jesus says, where are the other 9? Didn't I heal 10 people? Like, thank you to the Samaritan who came back, but where are the other 9? I tell you what, I'm not making this up. I read this story. I think I was in Colorado about 18 or so years ago in a summer project with Campus Crusade for Christ, and somebody read this story, and I'll never forget sitting in the corner of the room just sobbing like a child. This story broke me. I sobbed like a child because I realized for the first time in my life that this is what I've been doing. All of my life, I've been waiting and hoping that God would meet me at the next thing, and then at the next thing, and at the next miracle. And for the first time, I realized that whole time, Jesus has been waiting for me at the scene of the last miracle. And it broke my heart to think of all the times that I left Jesus waiting. I realized for the first time in my life that I had spent so much of my life being the 9. I just remember sitting in that room going, wow, God, I wonder how many times you've waited for me on the dusty road. I wonder how many times you've looked above the hill and go, where is he? When is he going to come back? Jesus says, where are they? Where are the other 9? And it says in verse 18, has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? If you have your Bible, please circle, underline, scratch the word return. Because that's the lead story. Okay, don't miss this. If you don't hear anything else I say, take this with you. The lead story here is not that the one guy, Bob, felt gratitude and no one else did. No, the lead story is he returned. Okay, and I don't know this for sure, but I bet you if you caught up with the other 9 people as they were going and you interviewed them and you put a mic in 13 ABC or whatever, I bet you they felt gratitude. I bet you they were like, oh, we're grateful. Of course we're grateful. We were lepers, man. We were ostracized from the community, and then Jesus saved us. I bet they felt gratitude in their hearts. The moral of the story is not that one guy felt gratitude and the other 9 didn't feel gratitude. No, the moral of the story is that one guy returned. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, but feeling gratitude in our hearts not enough. Gratitude must be expressed. And in order for you to express gratitude, you gotta go back. And so many of us are so bad at going back. I don't know what the 9 had on their agenda. I'm guessing their Google Calendar was packed full, and there's a lot of things that they hadn't done for a long time. They're like, I haven't seen my family for a long time, and I haven't seen my kids, and I haven't been to Chuck E. Cheese in a long time. I was a kid when I went the last time, and I haven't seen, I just want to kind of go see a movie. Like, I'm sure God understands. I don't know what they had on their calendar, but one guy, as he was going to stop in his tracks, it's like everything else can wait. I got to go back. I got to go back because Jesus is waiting. Got to go back. It's not enough to feel the gratitude. We got to express it. And if you're a parent, you get this. Last Sunday, I gave Hudson a little mint, all right? And this is Matt's son. I gave him a little mint. You know, it's funny because my kids are like, can I have a mint? I'm like, no. Someone else's kid, he didn't ask, but I was like, give him all the sugar. I don't have to deal with it, you know. But it's so interesting. I gave him a mint. This is last Sunday. And I left the room, and 10 seconds later, he comes running up to me. What did you tell him? Did you say thank you? Notice that as parents, you never say, did you feel thankful? Right? Like when someone gives your kid something, you know, like, what do you feel? What do you feel? Grateful. Good job, buddy. No, what do we say? What do you say? Because we understand as parents instinctively it's not enough to feel gratitude in your heart. You've got to express it. And that's what this man knew. He knew that it wasn't enough to feel it, that he had to go back and give praise to Jesus and express his gratitude to Jesus. And the writer says that he ran back. And what this man learned, and what most of us, I think, forget, is that gratitude is not only not complete until we go back, but what we miss is that oftentimes going back to the scene of our last miracle is actually the most fertile soil for the next miracle that God has for us. We've bought into the lie that we just got to keep pushing forward for the next thing. And God's like, I got more from you at the scene, more for you where I'm waiting. Listen to how the story ends. It says that Jesus says, no one returned to give praise. And after looking around and he didn't see anybody, listen to what the writer says. It says, then Jesus looked at him, one guy, and then he says this to him, rise and go, for your faith has made you well. I noticed something when I read this the other day that I had never noticed before. I think it's interesting that Jesus said your faith, right? I would think that Jesus would say your gratitude has made you whole. But he said faith. And that just kind of threw me in a little loop when I read it, because I kept thinking to myself, I think for so long, like a lot of us, I always thought that the faith was about looking forward. Like I always thought that the place that we find faith and the place that we find the confidence that we're looking for is when we look forward. But I think a part of what we see in this passage is that there's a faith that can be found when we go back to the scene of the last miracle. And so this guy came back, and Jesus looked at him and says, your faith has made you well. So now you're not only healed physically, but you've just experienced a healing that you didn't even know you needed. You've just experienced a spiritual birth. Could it be that so many of us are so preoccupied with trying to generate faith and figure out how we're going to get the next thing, and the whole time God's waiting back there and he's going, I got all the faith you have at the scene of your last miracle. Now, could it be that while all of us are trying to navigate how to get through our current storm, God's like, the way you get through your current storm is to go back to the shores of your previous storm? Could it be in the place of gratitude is more faith and hope than we could ever imagine? Can I show you what this looks like for me personally? I want to show you guys, outside of God and the Holy Spirit, how I made it through COVID. Crazy season. Pastors falling left and right. Everything crashed. Lost relationship, lost people, everything you can think of that I'm an Enneagram 3. I love to achieve. Everything was like trending down. And I think it was in God's sovereignty. I think it was 2019 before COVID hit. It's my prayer journal. Can't see it, but it says 7/31/19. I think I shared this before. Congrats, David Lenz. You're the first one in my journal. Don't ever say I don't love you. 7/31/19. David Lenz, thank you, God, for his love for people. How much he loves well, and how much he loves and is always given. Matt Harsh, thank you for his friendship. Always available, always listening, always leading. Best leader I've ever worked with. Flip over random pages. Thank you for Mom and Dad. The gift that they are to the church and to me as a leader. Thank you for Luke Barney. I think Luke's in here somewhere. Servant's heart, so consistent. Liz Ramirez, that's you right there. Right? Builder, contributor, eager. Thank you for all that they do. Flip over randomly to whatever page. Jesus, thank you. Aaron, look, make sure I'm not making this up so they don't think I'm making up. Thank you for all that you do. Flip another random page. Thank you for what was a dream that's now a reality. Thank you, Molly, Weston, Needson, David Martin, Lenz, again. Man, I really like this dude, right? Flip over again. Thank you, God, for our circles. Thank you for Ryan Snow. Thank you for Jim. Thank you for Hannah, Bethany, Shannon. Flip over again. Thank you. Thank you for my wife. Thank you for my kids. Thank you for your calling. Flip over again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 2/17/20. Thank you. If you look through my journal, 98% of what you're going to find in there is me just saying, God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, all through COVID. When everything was falling apart, when I wanted to quit, I just kept going back and saying thank you. And the reason I was going back is not because I felt gratitude in my heart. The reason I was going back is because I've learned a valuable lesson that sometimes the faith that we need for the next miracle is at the scene of our last miracle. And I've decided a long time ago that I'm not going to be the 9. I don't want to spend my whole life moving forward. I want to be the person that always goes back. I have committed in my heart that no matter what's going ahead of me, I'm going to go back. I'm going to return to the scene. Even when it feels like there's nothing to be thankful for, I'm going to come up with something. I'm going to look around the church. I'm going to come up with names. I'm going to come up with situations. I'm going to look at my wife. I'm going to look at my kids. I'm going to look at our church. I'm going to look at the 5, and I'm going to remember what it was like to pray for God to meet me at this place of need. And He not only met me, but He did more than I could ever imagine. And no, I'm not going to only have a loud prayer, but I'm going to have a loud praise, for He is worthy of all my praise. All of it. And I just want to share just one more thing and I'll be done. I promise you guys. Isn't it crazy to anybody else in here that Jesus doesn't reverse the miracle for the other 9? I mean, if He could heal them, He can reverse it. That's what I would have done. I'd have been like, okay, good, lucky for you. Snap your fingers. Watch them come back real quick. They're like, gotta go back. He don't reverse it. That's the grace of God. It's the grace of God that His blessing over your life is not dependent on your gratitude. And so God's like, you may never come back, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I don't know about you, but that makes me want to go back even more. That we serve a God whose blessing is not dependent on us returning. Last question, and I'm out of here. If not Jesus, who else? Because here's the deal. Somebody is going to get praise for your life. There is no neutral. Even if you're in the room or online, you're not a follower of Jesus Christ, everybody's going to give praise and glory to something or someone. So if not Jesus, who else? You? I mean, I don't mean to be offensive here, but your breath is borrowed. I know you played a little part and you worked really hard and you did the thing to make the thing happen, but do you understand that the breath in your lungs are borrowed? You had no choice whether you were going to get up this morning. Even that was a gift of God. There are people who work 100 times harder than you ever work, and they don't have the things that you have. The reason that you are where you are today, doing what you do today, having what you have today, is because Jesus had mercy on you. So if not Jesus, who else? Who else is going to get the praise? Jesus, thank you so much for how good you've been to us. Even when we don't deserve it, you show up in our lives.